National Park. We've just come down from Geraldton from the north, and we've had the beautiful wildflower season of Geraldton's north. And of course much later in the season everything's finished up there, but here we are on the south coast. Stacks of rain, unfortunately, but you can see what happens when you've got stacks of rain. We're surrounded again, we've just followed the wildflowers south. So we are standing at the moment in the Donnelly River boat ramp launching area, and we are not only surrounded by wildflowers, but we've been welcomed by the Bowdene's cockatoos, the big white-tailed black cockatoos, and everywhere around us here we can see scratchings on the ground, suspiciously like pigs, although we're hoping they're woylies, we never know. So we are camping at the river mouth, and we are hoping for more of both wildflowers and wildlife for the rest of the week. Right. We're going to go and get the boats packed up. See you down at the river. Wow, that was quick. Amazing what you can do with a cup of coffee. Right, we're packed. There's the river over there. We're off. See you down the river.
Okay, down here on the beach, it's the kayak landing spot and the campsite. It's pretty cool. It's up through the dunes here. Pretty well worn track. It's obviously used quite a bit for camping. And then you keep going into the first swale. And here we are, our humble abode. There's a stainless steel sink down here, which is pretty cool. The tent, Wendy getting a bit of stuff together. And
Yes.
behind is our little speciality, our little
Wardrobe.
Well, the wardrobe, yeah.
Oh, I quite like my wardrobe.
Yeah, yeah.
Wardrobe's great. Look, just
50
stuff
litre
everything in there.
50 litre sealed barrel, ideal for kayaks.
Yep.
But then this has been a bit of a boon. This is just a tarp and a mozzie net. Perfect for a little rest in the afternoon and a bit of lunch away from the flies. Because man, the flies have been something else.
Bush flies, blowflies, march flies, sand flies,
They're all here.
and sometimes mosquitoes as well.
Yeah. But what a top spot.
So we've arrived at the Donnelly River mouth, and we've camped over the dunes there. We've come down the river away from massive, tall Jarrah Marri woodlands with lots of diversity, and now we're on the coast and we've got lots less diversity but no less spectacular. We're camped at the base of these amazing cliffs. We're going to explore the vegetation in just a while, but the first thing, priorities, food. So we're going to head out and see if we can catch ourselves some fish.
Probably a bit small. We'll let him go.
Yeah, okay. Sometimes it's the things that are missing. And here we have a pristine beach, not a footprint on it until we get here, and even better, no four-wheel drives. Hooray! Okay, here we are at the mouth of the Donnelly River. At our campsite here, we're just surrounded by not just wildflowers, wildlife. There's all sorts of interesting things out there. We'll show you some of their footprints, but we've got a really beautiful peppermint tree. All of them around us are absolutely bursting in bud at the moment here, so they're putting on quite a show for us. So Agonis flexuosa, or the peppermint tree, This was only kind of small because it's by the coast, but inland they grow very tall and they make fabulous habitat for ringtail possums. And around us here we've got a couple of other interesting things here. We've got another wattle. I've not actually ever seen this one in flower before. It seems to flower early on in the season, but you can just spot some of the last few flowers here that's telling us that this one's a wattle. And bright yellow flowers. It's a very typical wattle. And we know this one's actually flowered earlier on because you can actually see some of the pods as those flowers get fertilised. You can just make out the pods down here. That will be full of seed. But there's one more interesting thing that's also on the bush above, because this is a really harsh environment, and in hot, dry, nutrient poor soils, this plant here that I'm just grabbing is actually a parasite. It's much easier to snick somebody else's moisture and food. This one's called Casatha or Dodder, and you can see it's actually wrapping itself around the limb. And if I take my hands away, we might be able to focus in on some of the little tiny weeny little suckers there. So what it's doing is it's wrapping itself around another plant, and those little suckers literally take out all the moisture from the plant underneath. It's a natural part of the environment, and this parasite produces some really good berries that are favourite food of the mistletoe bird. Okay, and we can also see the plant that it's trying to take moisture from. Tiny weeny little white, slightly furry flowers here. And this one's called the bearded heath or leucopogon. It's called bearded heath mainly because those flowers are covered in tiny weeny little white hairs. It gives it a sort of a bit of a beard look. But you can see what happens when those guys get fertilised. See all of the berries underneath. So those berries would be good food for local birds, local animals. And I believe some of the earlier explorers, when they'd get lost after they'd hopped off the boat, gone exploring, they'd get lost. I'm pretty sure it actually was leucopogon berries that some of them survived on. It's best not to try it yourself though, because you never know which ones are edible and which ones aren't. And behind us, over here, this one's a common one. You'll see this one absolutely everywhere, pretty much everywhere that you go to along the coast. It's a really typical coastal plant. It's called coastal daisy or Olearia axillaris, and you can see that its new growth as we're coming into the summer season is white, as well as many of the other coastal plants. And all that is a layer of insulation. These tiny weeny little white hairs that are covering the leaves here act like insulation, help to keep the plant cool in a really hot June environment. But what's even better is, I haven't tried it myself, but when you pick some of the leaves, crush it and sniff it, oh, it's a really lovely smell. And according to legend, William Dampier, when he sailed up the coast in 1699, thought this was a bit special and they used it in cooking. You can imagine that they'd been surviving on hardtack and salt beef for months on end. They would have been looking for anything to make that food taste better. What else have we got around here? A couple of, oh, here's a nice wildflower over here. We've got hibiscus or guinea flowers. Apparently when the early settlers first spotted these, they decided that their common names were going to be guinea flowers because they looked an awful lot like gold guineas of the day. So hibiscus is its genus name though. Much easier to figure out what it is. What else have we got around here? Oh, we've got a couple more parasites. So let's go over here and have a little look at some more parasites. So here we've got Muehlenbeckia, which is a natural climber. And although this isn't a parasite, it's using the plant underneath as a bit of trellis work, if you like. But the plant underneath it is a parasite. So this one's a hemiparasite. Its roots are in the ground, more than likely living off some of the local plants around here and taking moisture and some nutrients from it. This one's called Astatia, And because it's got a lot of nutrients, of course, it can produce a berry. And I've only just spotted them. There they are. There's some of the berries of the Astatia. Good food again for the local birds. Nice and red and juicy. Okay, so this one's a acacia cyclops. It's another wattle. And I've never actually managed to see this one flowering, but it must have been a profuse flower this year, because you can see all of the pods that this one is producing its seed in. It's absolutely covered in pods. And the beauty of this one is you can see this year's pods, but you can also see last year's pods down here. It hangs on to its pods and its seed for quite some time. And the reason why it does that is when those pods split open, they're a little bit unusual for a wattle. What they do is they split open and the seed stays in the pod and presents itself to a passing bird. It's bright red, which is really, really easy to be seen by a bird. It's got a little tiny little bit of food on the outside of the seed that's bright red. And the birds will come down, pick that up, eat it, and as they fly over the dunes, they'll poop it out over the other dune over there in a nice little dollop of fertilizer, and off it'll go, it'll get germinated again. But the reason why this one's called acacia cyclops is the seed that normally rests in here. In fact, here's one that's actually stayed from last year. It's a very old seed that you can see there. The white bit in season is actually bright, bright red, and it just looks like the cyclops of legend. Big black eye with a red ring around it. So they do have a little bit of fun sometimes with the scientific names. I think this is also called the red-eyed wattle. We've got common names, we've got scientific names. And the only problem with common names is plants like this can have 10 or 11 or 12 common names and no one knows what anyone's talking about. If you call it the acacia cyclops, everyone knows what we're talking about. Okay, all the way along the waterfront here, we've got a natural native weed, Juncus crawsii. Grows in these big thick mats. And the one thing that's actually quite obvious at this campsite, and a good thing to keep in mind for future, is it's a big open beach over there where Mick's standing in the background. And the reason why that's a big open beach is because the Juncus has obviously been removed, accidentally or purposely. Wherever you remove that Juncus, here you can see what happens to the bank over here. The Juncus performs a really, really good service in protecting the bank of the river from erosion. And wherever it's removed, the movement of the river basically just washes away the bank. So when you see little tiny seedlings like this just starting to come up, well, this is what you want to keep. You want to try and avoid stepping on them as you're going along, because those are going to grow into nice big bushes that will help to protect this part of the river and the campsite that's behind it. So we've got a whole bunch of things flowering at this time of year, but we've got the coastal equivalent of the everlastings in front of us here. These are called senecio, and once a year they germinate with the new rains, prolifically flower like this, and just like the everlastings at the end of the season, just focusing on this one here, they just produce masses of seed like this that literally just blows away. So end of the season, the plant's gone, but it's still here, stored as seed in the soil, waiting for next year's rains, when up it comes and does the same thing. Good way of avoiding a hot, dry summer, if you ask me. So you can see over there, the seaweed's got a hold of that dune over there and it's just blowing away. But what's on this dune here is native beach spinifex. This one's called Spinifex hirsutus, and that just means hairy. Hirsutus means hairy. And if you get a good close look, you can see the leaves are covered in tiny, weeny little white hairs. And that just acts like insulation and helps to keep them cool. As you can imagine, this dune's pretty hot in summer. But what it's actually doing is deep beneath the sand, all of its roots are hanging on to this dune, just like the Rio in concrete. It's reinforcing the dune. And as the spinifex gets covered over by sand, it literally has the ability to grow really quickly up through that dune. So you can see the dune behind me, you can just see the plant on top. What's actually underneath is all roots and plant holding onto that dune and keeping it in place. Excellent.
Not much washed up on this beach, but here's a little red algae, commonly known as slime bags for
Take your hand
obvious
away.
reasons.
Take your hand away. Ew.
Pretty gross.
Over in the distance we've got some red-capped plovers, and this is how hard it is to actually see their nest. This is a little tiny, beautifully camouflaged little egg, and we're going to leave it here and stop bothering them. But this is why four-wheel drives on beaches are not good for these guys, because they don't see them. And we just walked past this and almost missed it. You never see that in a four-wheel drive. You'd run straight up.
So there's always lots of really interesting tracks in these coastal dunes. And this looks like the track to an ant, or of an antlion larvae. You can see he's tracked all the way through the sand. And this looks like where he's finished. So if we just carefully dig, we might actually come up with the antlion larvae. And there he is, he's a monster. Go back into the sand there. So these are the larvae to an antlion lacewing. They look a bit like a cross between a lacewing and a dragonfly. And the larval stage is really interesting. You might be able to see those really big nippers at the front there. When they find a good spot that they reckon there's going to be lots of ants and some soft sand, they'll dig themselves these characteristic little cones, and these larvae sit in the bottom where their jaw is ready, and when an ant comes stumbling along and makes all the sand fall into the bottom of the trap, this larvae will flick the sand up with the back of its head in a machine gun fire of sand and knock the ant into the bottom of the trap, where he is grabbed with those big pincers and pulled underground as a meal for the antlion. Hence the name. It's the
Okay, one of my favourite pieces of hiking equipment is the good old Trangia. You pay a bit of money for them, but by crikeys, they're worth it. So this is one of my most fun experiences when we're hiking or when we're camping, is cooking on this little chappy. It's a hooter. It's absolutely brilliant. No working parts. It just works on metho. They're fantastic. You can get others. You can get other pieces of hiking equipment, but this beats all of them if you ask me. I'm just cooking up some breakfast here. Now, the other tips that we've learnt these holidays, which has been a bit exciting, is popcorn. It works on a Trangia, and it's been fantastic. And the other thing that we learnt is hummus rehydrates really well. Another good camping find. Okay, just getting this a bit gluggy here. You can turn them off, I think. So, after yet another day of fun in paradise here, we've been down to the mouth of the river, caught no fish at all, up the river, caught no fish at all, walked out to the beach, been sandblasted, so we've decided to retreat to our own little beach and see if Trangia popcorn is possible. This is our scientific experiment for the day, and we will see very shortly whether it can be done. Stay tuned. Shit.
I should probably be helping rather than filming.
Okay, we have liftoff. Trangia popcorn is possible. It smells great.
It does.
It smells really good.
Alright. How did that turn out, Wendy?
Homemade Trangia popcorn. This is living.
Looks pretty good. That's some
Very nice.
secret herbs and spices in there. Fantastic.
Well, our first lunch of bream, fresh caught from the river, and we're sitting here, thank God, in a mosquito and fly-proof netting. This is amazingly good because, as you can all see, or probably hear, we are being besieged by some very, very friendly blowflies. Can't quite understand why we've got blowflies here. Bush flies, maybe. Blowflies, Anyway, very comfortable and about to sit back, relax with a nice cup of homegrown chamomile tea. Well, we found a bit of marine debris in the last couple of days, and we'll go through that shortly. And there's an awful lot more out there. We've just taken a wee selection. We'll talk a bit more about it in a moment, but it's amazing what uses you can put marine debris to. It's our coffee table. Thank you.
So it doesn't matter where you end up in this big beautiful world. You might think you're the first one there, but marine and river debris has usually beaten you to it, and the mouth of the Donnelly is no exception. We've picked up a few items whilst we've been around. We're going to take them out of here. Vast majority of it's plastic. People think that plastic breaks down. Plastic doesn't break down. Plastic breaks up into smaller and smaller pieces, and eventually it enters the food chain. So all of these bait straps and bits of plastic and bait holders all break down and end up in your black bream eventually. So once the plastic's there, it's really important to get it out of the system as well as stop it getting in there in the first place. Most of this stuff is probably fishing related, with a few exceptions. There might be some land-based stuff that might have come from camping or shackers or whatever. Lost a roll of tape there. A couple of interesting finds. One is on the beach. We found this yesterday. This is a bottle of Asian hand desanitizer or hand sanitizer. So probably an interesting thing, you know, indicating COVID. Fishing, lots of rope. And my favourite here is this little guy here. This is a little chess piece. It's a knight, and proof positive that the black knight always triumphs. Right, we're going to take this stuff out of here.
Last morning, we woke up to what sounded like rainfall on our roof this morning to discover there's just been a cloud that lacked the will to fly. We're in fog. And it's sweeping over the river mouth now and gradually clearing, but this place is a real place of contrast. Hot, cold, windy, calm, blue sky, and clouds on the ground. We'll be sorry to go, I think. Okay, some of the most important stuff when you're out in the bush and trying to leave no trace, take all of the stuff with you that you need. And don't get your fingers in front of the camera lens as I've just done. So one of the best things we've ever done, we've got all our hiking gear with us. It's nice and light for kayaking. You can carry more in a kayak than you would do hiking, but it's still good to have it nice and light. So Mick's just stuffing away one of our silk sheets. It makes a huge difference if it's a cold night to sleep in something else inside your sleeping bag. So our silk sleeping sheets. We've got a decent sleeping bag. That's the one thing we've noticed over the years. If you actually spend a bit of money on a decent sleeping bag, you get your money's worth, and the things last. It's not like other equipment. Sometimes you can pay a lot of money for hiking equipment that doesn't necessarily last the test of time. So away goes the sleeping bag and a nice little stuff sack. Squashes down to next to nothing.
And toasty warm.
And really nice and warm. And that thing's 9 years old. As good as the day we bought it. Now we're actually using a little black barrel here, because we can, because we're kayaking, that works beautifully as a wardrobe. The other thing that we've found quite handy is having these big fluffy down jackets here, because it has been a trip of extremes. It's been really, really cold, and it's actually been really, really warm some days as well. Warm enough to get in to swim. So again, stuff sack, and again, these guys were just really good value. Just nice scrunch down to next to nothing when you're hiking. And
Double as a pillow.
Doubles as a pillow, indeed.
Yeah.
Okay, another piece of really good equipment. And
The old stuff sacks for the clothes. That's the essential one to keep stuff dry.
unfortunately we've had no rain this time, but that is really important when it is wet. Now the disappointment for us, or the challenge I suppose, is the sleeping mats that we've had. This particular one has, this is our third one, and each of the other two out of the three that we've bought, the seams go. So you can see that it's got a, they just pop at the seams. Yeah. So you end up sleeping on a jolly great big lump in the middle of the night. And in the middle of a trip, that can make a really uncomfortable trip. We probably wouldn't invest in one of these before, because we've had no joy from the manufacturers when we've been to see them now. Our latest iteration is this one here. So this is our first trip with this one. Neither of these two products are cheap. They're both really comfortable, and we're just wanting to see if this one's actually going to last us more than a year or two. It's a lot of money to pay for just a year. Hiding underneath that mattress is, yay, our hiking tent. This has been really good. It's an MSR, that's 9 years old as well. Really light, really roomy on the inside, and just stands the test of time. You pay a lot of money for them, but they last. The hiking poles are broken once on it, but they're really good about replacing them. And here's the good thing, after 9 years, you can still get replacement hiking poles. So that's been a fabulous experience for us, and we'd go with an MSR tent again. So as we leave, you can see the campground. Leave no trace.